Hi there, welcome to this exciting episode of Chatting with the Lightkeeper. I am Edward, otherwise known as the Lightkeeper, but I'm willing to guess that most of you probably already knew that. So, we are now, a little less than 2 weeks till Christmas, and it's gift exchange time and all that all that good stuff. And I will admit at this point I have not bought a single holiday gift. Now I have bought Hanukkah gifts uh, because my family is a mix of religions, so there have been some Hanukkah gifting going on, but I have yet to invest anything in Christmas gift stuff. So that is where I am at on the shopping front. In fact, I find holiday shopping, even with all the modern conveniences of ordering online, picking up in store, or ordering online and having it dropped off on my porch, it still feels overwhelming to me. And I literally have to be in a calm state of mind to really not enjoy the process. I never enjoy the process of shopping. I'm just not a big shopper. So that process is never something that I really find enjoyable. But I do enjoy the giving of the gifts, seeing that I surprise somebody with something they wanted or surprise them with something they didn't know existed. Those types of things I enjoy and just enjoy the kind of the spirit of the day, you will, if you will, where it's just about being together and sharing things with others. That part I enjoy. It's just the whole actually figuring out what to give people and get for people, especially now that, uh, for example, my dad is older and thankfully has done well for himself in life. So he sort of, I jokingly call him my teenage dad. It's not because he does dumb things like I did as a teenager, but because he has sort of the mentality of a young person of, oh, I want that, I'll get that. And he's in a great place where he can just do that. Or, hey, I want to take a trip and go to New Orleans. I've never been to New Orleans. I want to go. Hey, there's a last minute deal. I'm going to New Orleans. Those types of things. So it's not meant to be derogatory. It's just, it's kind of fun how it is where somebody who, and I guess I probably get this more from my dad, typically was a meticulous planner, and now he's a little more just do it, and it's fun and fascinating for me all at once. And I guess the point of that is that he also makes him a very hard person to buy holiday gifts for because if he wants something, he gets it, or he needs a new tool for doing this, he just goes and gets it. And so it makes gift getting hard for me because I can ask him what he wants. Oh, I don't need anything. I've got everything I need. Yeah, I know. That's why I'm asking what you want. And I, get no reply. So I have yet to figure out what I'm going to do for him for the holidays. I kind of have everybody else that I need to buy for figured out, but what to get the father who has everything, and when he decides he doesn't have everything, he just gets it, rather than saying he would like us this or that. Makes it a little bit of a challenge. So that's where I am with holiday shopping. And the other part of the whole holiday shopping thing is I talked about how it's overwhelming at times for me. I feel kind of like stressy and get anxious about it. Will they like this? Won't they like this? Will they find it useful? And if you don't know, that means I'm a chronic overthinker. I overthink things, and that gets into BDSM, believe it or not, being a chronic overthinker and occasionally getting overwhelmed. And I was having a day where I was overwhelmed work-wise a week or two ago, and I posed a question on my social media stuff about have you ever felt overwhelmed by the lifestyle or in the lifestyle? And I was really surprised when the poll results across all the platforms were coming back, and the vast majority of people were saying, yeah, yeah, I've been overwhelmed. And I thought, wow, that was not what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting the vast majority of people to say they were overwhelmed by the lifestyle. I was completely shocked. And then later on that week, I went to a little munch that was not far from my office, thankfully, and it was a bunch of kinky cigar lovers, which I do enjoy an occasional cigar. And so as we sat around talking and being the new kid, it was weird. It was kind of in a way felt like a kinky AA meeting. We're all like sitting around in a circle in a cigar shop where you can smoke cigars and have a soft drink, no alcoholic beverages. But that's not why it felt like some sort of anonymous meeting. But we all they did the whole circle thing. Hi, I'm Bob, and I'm a dominant, or hi, I'm Joe, and I'm a submissive, and all genders of people. And it came to me and did my little introduction thing, and then out of the blue, I just hit me like a bolt that this poll question was still swirling in my head about being overwhelmed. And I said, I'm just curious, did anybody when they were new feel overwhelmed by the lifestyle? And whoop, it was like the class where like everybody raises their hand, yeah, and everybody was, and I'm like, oh, hmm. And then since it was by the office, that meant I had, thanks to traffic, a little bit of almost a 2 hour drive home afterwards. Not fun, by the way. Um, but it gave me that drive time, gave me time to process all of this that was spinning in my head. And as it spun in my head, I got thinking back to myself. Yeah, yeah, when I first jumped into the lifestyle, there was no overwhelming. It was excitement. I was giddy, enthusiastic, couldn't learn enough, wanted more, 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 more. Which is what I was remembering. And then a bit more on my backstory. This was in college, and after I graduated and entered the real world, I thought of BDSM as a college phase. Like this was just a college thing. You're an adult now. Um, I'm not sure if any of you remember that song by The Pursuit of Happiness on Much Music, but that was one of my favorite songs back then. I'm an adult now. And so I put the lifestyle away. I put it in a nice box and stuck it in that back spot in my mental attic, and it was packed away. And gosh darn it, I tried to be the best vanilla boyfriend to the couple of amazing women that I dated, and it just I felt something was missing in each of those relationships, and they were very different people. So it was something where my brain was able to quickly realize it's not them, it's you. And I know that's the cheesy breakup line, but in my case, it truly was. There's something different with me that wasn't, that I need that they weren't able to give me. And I'm not saying they weren't amazing people because they actually are very amazing. And, looking back, I'm like, well, how did these, amazing people ever get interested in me? But neither here nor there. The struggle with figuring out myself went to one day unpacking that BDSM box from the mental attic and going through it and then going, nah, and putting it back and bringing it back out a couple weeks later and doing a little more research and then putting it away, back out, back away. And what dawned on me is during that time, when I would pull that box out, I would often feel overwhelmed. Like at, when I'm of the age when I started college, there was no internet. There were some networking of computers and such, but no internet as we know it. And during the time when I was a good vanilla person, the internet really started to come into its own. So every time I would unpack the BDSM box, would go along with some internet surfing to research and learn, and yeah, the overwhelm would come. So that wonderful drive home from my having a cigar and a very healthy Coca-Cola. First time I've had a Coke in probably 2 years. So it was a refreshing taste. Not that I'm craving another one, but neither here nor there. I discovered that I was overwhelmed by the lifestyle too. This was not something that, when I look back in my memories, that it was something that impacted me as well. So then the thought process starts of what causes this? What caused it for me, and what causes it for others? So that, of course, triggered the nerdy research guy in myself, which meant talking to people and doing, my little my little geeky, kinky research. And I've learned that there are commonalities in a lot of cases where people feel overwhelmed by the lifestyle. The first thing that really can cause somebody to get overwhelmed and curtail or step away from the lifestyle, or maybe hit pause and then come back, is there are so many terms to the lifestyle, and those terms often mean different things to different people, right? Like if I hypothetically at the little kinky cigar meetup had said, define dominant, I'm sure as we went around that room, we would have heard some similar answers, and we would have heard answers that were very different. A very basic term, what is a dominant, is going to get different answers. And so there's all sorts of terms out there, all sorts of acronyms. And of course, these are growing daily. And then, of course, you have people that misuse acronyms, like the gentleman who wrote his piece on BDSM safety protocols, who thought PRIC, which is personal responsibility informed consensual kink, thought it was some sort of weird version of cock and ball torture. So you have, you know, good information out there, horrible information, and just all these different acronyms galore that mean different things that it mean, to different people. So it's very, really overwhelming, just the vocabulary of it. And speaking of vocabulary, quick thought. I love to write. I like using unique words. One of my nicknames is Wordy. Um, and all of that doesn't go back to loving spelling and vocabulary in elementary and middle school. I couldn't stand it. It's just funny how I enjoy having a diverse vocabulary and now and at the time. Couldn't stand the educational side of learning that. But in a way, I guess it kind of does pair with this, because at the time I kind of found it overwhelming. And now, if you are new to kink, there is so many choices out there. There's, you know, like I know FetLife has a whole, it's like an encyclopedia site. It's called a Kinctionary, and you have to go here, 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 and it's getting there's a convoluted mess. And then once you're there, they do try to break up some of the terminology into various like subsections, but even then, it's overwhelming all the terms that are out there. So I can understand somebody who comes to the lifestyle, starts exploring it. You start seeing where people just start abbreviating acronyms, and then you start researching, well, what does this acronym mean? Does it mean this or does it mean that? And then it means this and that, or depending on who you ask, has different meanings. And not that maybe having two meanings is wrong, they're both right. And oh my goodness. So, yeah, the whole terminology and all the concepts and all the acronyms out there, I can understand where that alone would like cause somebody's mind to melt, especially if you're doing this research and you have a life on top of everything else. You're curious about kink, something sparks that curiosity in you, and you've got a job, or you've got a family, or you're in school, and you have all of those pressures, and then this whole convoluted mess of terms and concepts and acronyms. Yeah, yeah, that would cause me to feel overwhelmed, in a heartbeat now. And then moving on from that bit of potential overwhelming, anxious, anxiety causing stuff is the whole complexities of power dynamics, roles, relationships. I mean, if you look at all the different styles of relationships that are underneath the BDSM umbrella nowadays, I mean, you have the traditional dominant submissive power exchange relationships. I think that most people predominantly, when they think of a lifestyle relationship, that's kind of their default thought. But the fact that the kink umbrella has really, I guess, grown in size or covers more territory, you have underneath this big umbrella, you have all the different types of poly relationships that are now there. You even have people who um, are exploring the lifestyle just for the sexual components of it. They're now welcomed under the umbrella. So you have all the terms with swinging that come into this, and then you have people that are in a power exchange relationship and also do some swinging, or they're power exchange and they also are poly. And you have all these various different relationship dynamics. So once you've made it through the terminology, you have all these different relationship styles, all these different roles that are pain to figure out if you were new. I would think they would be, especially when you come and you have sort of the vanilla background, if you do at all, the Dom sub, that's a BDSM relationship, and then suddenly your mind is blown by all these other relationship styles and ways of having relationships that are here and accepted in the Kinkastic world. And then on top of that, unfortunately, the way society and the media treats the lifestyle, if you are new, I think anybody who is new to anything is going to come with some unrealistic expectations. And the way the lifestyle is portrayed um, in our popular culture, it's one where you're probably going to come with some unrealistic expectations. So you're seeing these unrealistic expectations. They're meeting ideas and concepts that you weren't prepared for. And it's just, once again, it's going to be something that's going to cause anxiety. And the fact that it's an area where there's continuous communication between partners and even the most hardcore power exchange relationship is always in kind of a state of being tweaked to meet the needs of today and tomorrow rather than meeting the needs of where it was 90 days ago. So you have dynamic relationships um, that don't conform to unrealistic expectations. And once again, all these relationships seem to have some acronym which means different things to different people. It's very overwhelming. Now, let's say you come to the lifestyle and you're really not here for a relationship. You maybe saw the secretary and the spanking scenes in the movie The Secretary really turned you on. So you're really just here to get your kink on. Well, that's great. First of all, that's awesome. Welcome. You are welcomed into that great big lifestyle umbrella. Just because you're not interested in a true power exchange relationship doesn't mean that the lifestyle isn't for you, because it is. The problem is even then, even if you just sort of limit the amount of interest a person has in the lifestyle, you can't come and start educating yourself about DS before long, before you start running into horror stories about what has happened when consent is violated. People and engage in unsafe practices where they think it won't happen to them, and it does happen to them. So you have safety concerns that flow into all of this. And imagine if you were doing more than just a casual exploration. It's another area to be very anxious about, especially when it comes to you know, you've learned the terms, you've got a good lifestyle vocabulary, you've figured out the sort of dynamics that you like or what you're seeking, you've got through all of that, and you are now intrigued about actually meeting people. And now you have all these safety concerns to navigate. And then on top of navigating them all is the basic question, is it worth it? I mean, is it really worth it to take the risk to go meet this person for coffee or to go to that lunch? Is the lunch going to be safe? So you have all these safety concerns. And real quickly before I jump ahead, yes, the munch is going to be safe. Lunches are held in public spaces. Everyone is dressed vanilla. There's often a group. So yes, very safe space. Just wanted to voice that out there. Um, the other thing that can cause some anxiety after all of that are the trying to figure out what the norms within the BDSM community are. And maybe people get misinformed. So there's, once again, unrealistic expectations of what to expect from the lifestyle community. And even engaging with others for myriad of reasons can be very intimidating and anxious. I am a shy person who learned how to be an extrovert. It's one of the reasons why my friends know that on weekends, oftentimes I need a little time for just me. I might not respond to your text. That's why the kind of the default protocol for my group of close friends is if it's the weekend and let's say one of the guys I go to a hockey game with has decided that hey, let's travel down the road and go see this hockey game. Something like that comes as a phone call, not a text, because I'm great at avoiding text messages on weekends and avoiding my phone. However, if it does ring, that's normally like, hey, this is somewhat not necessarily important, but it's a time sensitive thing. We know you don't look at your text on most weekends, so the phone is ringing, and thus that's how it goes. That's how my circle navigates my shyness extrovert combination and my need to recharge the extrovert on weekends. So you have all these expectations and norms within the community. I mean, what's acceptable, what isn't acceptable, um, and on top of that, a natural shyness. It can be very intimidating. And then if you are somebody who isn't that doesn't enjoy people, and it can be very daunting to show up at a strange place filled with strangers who are also kinky strangers, and then have to say, "Hi, I'm, your name here, and I'm kinky too." And you're looking at all these strangers' faces as they look at you and trying to figure out what's behind them and all of that. Yeah, yeah, it would drive me to be very, very anxious. And on top of that, you have the other side of that, not only the engaging in community, but you have the figuring yourself out in all of this. And going back to myself, that was a huge ordeal. Trying to figure out what I wanted. How did I want to do this? What did it mean to be kinky? And back then, people thought that you were mentally ill if you were into BDSM. Literally, it was in the guidebooks that you know psychologists and all those professional types used to treat mental illness. And the book said, if you are into this, you are mentally ill. And try me, I didn't think I was. I mean, I'm crazy, but we're all crazy in ways. And I don't mean that as a negative. It's the Jimmy Buffett line: if we weren't all crazy, we would go insane. But back then, there literally was the stigma, and I think it probably still exists today, that if you were into this, that you are suffering some sort of mental illness. So that was a huge, huge thing for me. Um, trying to figure myself out, and that alone. Looking back, I would probably say definitely caused me some anxiety, some trepidation, you name it. I had to learn to accept that I wasn't, um, I wasn't mentally ill for liking this. That there wasn't something wrong with me. Um, that it was okay, that this was acceptable. There were other people like me. And that's another part that's hard is so many people who are new, even in the age of the internet where you can connect easily, find other people involved in this, there's still a sense of loneliness at the start of many people's kink journeys because they feel like, am I the only person? I know I'm finding this information on the internet and I'm seeing these discussion groups and I'm seeing other people on Instagram and Facebook and wherever you get your social media, you can find people, but it can still feel very lonely. And then on top of that, when you do journey out there and you start interacting with other people, whether it's in person or online, it can be very, very intimidating and a sense of kind of overwhelming is deciding where are you going to draw your boundaries? Where are your lines. Whereas what's a hard limits are easy that they things like that evolve over time. But try me, would I try that with a trusted partner? Would I do that? Uh, what would I share about myself? If I go to the lunch and somebody asks me, where do I live? What do I say? How do I, establishing all sorts of your boundaries to go along with establishing and understanding your kinks, can be very, very intimidating. And then the whole world of life comes into this, where some days we have plenty of free time, other days we have no free time. And so, how if find myself in a relationship, how do I balance the lifestyle with life? How does that work? That would be huge. And without having that experience, looking back now that I have, the career and commitments and all of that. Looking back, if I was new now, that would cause me to overthink galore, which would cause me to have anxiety trying to figure out that. And even in a relationship, if something blossomed tomorrow for me, there would still be overthinking on my end on this factor. How do I balance this? How do I, as a dominant, how do I lead and keep balance good between life and lifestyle? Yeah, it would cause me anxiety today. So I imagine that if you're new, it's going to be overwhelming to think about that. And if you get there for the first time, it's certainly going to be there. And then, and this seems like it shouldn't, but I would imagine that it would. We talk about consent, consent, consent. At least I do. I don't know. Consent is a hot button topic for me, I guess. It's something that we don't talk about as much in the lifestyle as I think we should. So maybe I talk about it too much to try and make up for it. But negotiating consent, without having any experience with negotiating consent in the lifestyle, it would seem that it could be very, very overwhelming. How do you describe your limits? If you're new, what are your preferences? I mean, do you even have a preference because you've maybe never experienced something before? Um, and then how do you know, pick the right partner to explore this all with? That would be, that would be overwhelming. And on top of that, with the whole, being safe and consent is building trust. It is not, we live in a world where trust is that's something that can be very hard to build and it can be very hard to maintain, depending on the people who we extend trust and who extend their trust to us. Um, Trust can be, I don't know, walking in a field filled with landmines and nothing but a poking stick to try and find them. So you have to consent and you have to build trust and oh man, it. must feel overwhelming. And then let's say you get into a relationship, okay? So now you've made it through all of this. You've handled the overwhelming, found somebody amazing, and you're building a relationship. Especially the first few times out of the box when you experience a lifestyle relationship. Now, this isn't the case with everybody, but most people will tell you it is much more emotionally intense than what they experienced in the vanilla world. Now, there can be a whole bunch of reasons for it, and I'm not going to go on and start talking and rambling about those, but you have a much more emotionally intense relationship um, that will cause overthinking, which of course overthinking can lead to overwhelming. There we go. So you have this emotionally intense relationship, unlike anything you've ever experienced, or even if it's your second or third try, it's still going to be very emotionally intense. And I think that if you're new and the deeper you connect with your partner, the more intense it actually feels. So you've got this wonderfully intense relationship. And then what happens when it comes to the discipline and punishment side of the lifestyle or discipline and correcting? Those are very, um, the first few times they happen are very challenging. And it's both from the dominant side and the submissive side. It's very, very much filled with overthinking. The dominant has to decide, is this something where going to hold accountability and then going forward, how do I keep the accountability here? I don't let things slide. And I've always said that for submissives, the first time your dominant says no is really a transformative experience. So you have the dominant who says, no, you've made a mistake, or what have you. So you have this very transformative experience happening for both sides of a power exchange relationship. That can be very overwhelming for both. Or, if it's multiple people, multiple partners, it'd be very overwhelming across the board. And then another thing that sounds simple, and we talk about aftercare being important and how awesome aftercare is, and it is. But if you're new, it can be an overwhelming concept. If you're a new dominant, and just thinking back to myself, like I knew aftercare was my jam. I loved it. But when you're with a new partner, aftercare is overthinking care for my brain because my brain is overthinking it. Well, what if I do this? And what if they don't like it? And what about this? And I can only imagine if you were newer to the lifestyle and a dominant, or newer to the lifestyle and a submissive, and the dominant is saying to the submissive, well, what would you like? Would you like a hot tea, or would you like to go for coffee or dinner, or cuddle on the couch, or cuddle, and you've never experienced this before, so you don't know. Uh, that would be overthinking anxious land for me, and I can understand where something as that sounds so simple and easy, like aftercare, would actually be an overthinking component, at least for me. And then finally, we come to something where, and unfortunately, this happens more times than I'd like to see, is that our first relationships, right? When we're new at something, we typically sort of suck at it. We don't typically, in my case, I'm a skier. We don't like, and I love to teach people how to ski. I have yet to have somebody that I've taught, whether it was in my time when I actually taught skiing or just, taking a friend to the hill to try and impart my love of the sport on them, where they hop on the skis and are, oh, hey, I'm a natural. There's a lot of falling. And in fact, the first lesson that whenever I've taught skiing is the first lesson is how to get up. You're going to fall down. So let's start with how to get up after we've fallen down. That's where my ski lessons always started. Hey, you're going to fall. Let's fall right to start with, and we'll start teaching you how to get up. And when it comes to relationships, especially if we're new to the lifestyle, we are probably going to have to learn how to fall and fail and get up, um, rather than just having relationship nirvana happen right out of the box. And what I was getting to is that sometimes when you're new, you make mistakes. And one of the mistakes that happens in DS land is there are unfortunately people on both sides of the slash, dominants and submissives. Dominants get more press about being bad doms or predatory dominants looking to take advantage of newbies. But there are submissives out there that do it just as well as those predatory dominants that we all complain about and you'll find writings here and there about. So it really applies to both, but you have people that come into DS relationships that target newer people because they can create through their experiences power imbalances, which benefit them in the relationship rather than having a DS relationship where even though one party is dominant and the other party is submissive, they're equal partners in the partnership. So you have people like that that come into play. So, wow, that is a whole lot of anxiety causing issues, which if you sort of think about some of these things individually, you think, wow, that's kind of awesome. And that's one of the reasons why I'm exploring the lifestyle. But yet the same things that cause us to be excited, to draw us in can also be things that can cause overthinking, anxiety, and all those not so helpful emotions that come along with them. So, how do we handle it when we find ourselves overwhelmed with the lifestyle? What can we do? Um, Thankfully, it is my podcast, and I wouldn't talk about all that if I didn't have a few ideas on how to help. Now, my helpful hints are not nearly as long of a list as going through what may or may not cause people to be overwhelmed. So, have no fear. The advice I have is much, much shorter. First of all, it's education and research. Uh, know what you don't know. Do your homework. This lifestyle is so important to do your homework and to invest in good quality educational experiences. I am a reader and a writer. I mean, if you follow my blog, you know I write a lot. Um, but I don't want anybody to think like my blog is the definitive place to go. In fact, if you are new and you want to take my advice to read things, read books, Dossie Easton is where I will send you. Her new topping book, the new bottoming book, and her co-author is Janet Hardy. Bing, bing, bing. Dossie Easton and Janet Hardy. The new topping book, the new bottoming book. Doesn't matter your role, read them both. And then, as an added bonus, whether you are a poly or not, there, another one of her books is The Ethical Slut, and it is fantastic. Yes, it is geared for people who want to explore poly, but even if you are not poly or don't, at this point in your journey, don't think poly is for you, there's so many quality relationship tips that monogamous people can learn from poly people. That even if you're monogamous, that book I believe will be transformative for your relationship or relationships going forward. Um, so those would be my three. And I know there are all sorts of lists out there and people that, I mean, once again, overwhelmingly have these lists of books and it's hundreds, 200s list of books on their websites and suggestions. Keep it simple. Start with the new topping book, the new bottoming book, or the ethical slut if you want to kind of dive into poly or learn the lessons from poly that can help your monogamous relationship. That's where I would start. Just those three books, and of course, with the age of the internet, couple that with doing your homework. And another thing that I love about smartphones is when I read and there's something in there that either I don't understand or it's new to me, I can pull out my smartphone, set the book aside because I am still a book reader. I'm not a big ebook person, still a book reader. but I can just use my smartphone and do a little research to learn more about what it is that's there that I'm not either understanding or don't have a background in. So it's really, they go hand in hand. The other thing to do, make sure you prioritize open and honest communication when you talk to others, whether it's a prospective partner, it is your partner, or just other people in the community. Please, and it's not just males who do this. It happens across all roles and genders. Know what you don't know. If you don't understand something or you don't know, or you think you know but you're not sure, ask, what does that mean for you? It's probably one of the most important questions I would suggest. What does that mean for you? It lets you understand what the other person means by it. And it's so very important, especially when, like I said earlier, if you ask a whole room full of dominants to define what dominant means to them, you're going to get a whole lot of different answers. So it's very important to communicate when you don't understand something. Don't set yourself up to have a potential misunderstanding. And remember the question, what does that mean for you? Another benefit is engaging with your community, whether it's online, whether it's in person, a combination of those two. Um, the community can be there to provide support, advice, camaraderie. Remember, feeling alone is a very common feeling that people have when they come to the lifestyle. The community is actually here for you. So don't be afraid to engage with that community. Uh, that's what makes one of the like makes the lifestyle so amazing is the people. So engage with the people. Just a bit of quick advice with the community, and it's something that I've said before. So if you are a veteran listener, this is not going to be new. And if you're new, you're going to hear this again. When you start to engage in the community, especially when you are newer and you, for example, are coming to the lifestyle, and let's say you believe that your dominant is the kind of that's the role that is drawing you in. When you start to engage in the community, engage with other dominants first. Don't start looking to engage with submissives. I know it can be very appealing and alluring to seek that love connection. We all want to be loved and to give love, but it can be disadvantages or yeah, it can be a disadvantage to jump right in like that. Get to know others that take on the same role as you are, so you can build start building a circle of people to go to for advice. And odds are, if you have a question, uh, there will be another person in your circle who's kind of walked in your shoes, so you can get some real practical advice. So reach out, do some community engagement, um, and of course, on top of that, the whole lifestyle. I like to think of BDSM as one of those great big gargantuan Las Vegas buffets, which, at 2 in the morning you can get an amazing discount on. At least you used to. I haven't been back to Vegas since BC times before COVID. But you have these extravagant, huge buffets in Las Vegas where even if you, I don't know, are a championship eater, there's no way you can eat or try everything that's out on that buffet all at once. You just can't. It's overwhelming. And the lifestyle can be like that. It can all look scrumptious and amazing, and it's all laid out for you, and you can take whatever you want. And people typically will like load up their plate with all this yumminess, and so you have this huge stacked plate that you can't finish, or if you do finish it all, you feel like poop afterwards because you overate. And the lifestyle is kind of like that Vegas buffet. You have to just do it gradually. Take a little bit. Start here. Find out if you like that, and then move on to that. And when you start to feel full, step back and be happy with where you're at, and you're feeling full and good. And then when you're ready, you kind of take another small trip up to the buffet, and take a little bit more until you're comfortable with that. So take small steps. And finally, never ever be afraid to ask questions. Never ever be afraid to reach out, whether it's to me or somebody else that you can go to. Ask questions and ask the same question to different people. Get different opinions, get different thoughts. It will help you grow. Ask questions. Please don't assume. Assumptions in this lifestyle are horrible. So don't assume. Ask questions. The only dumb question truly is the one that you don't ask. So I hope I haven't overwhelmed you while talking about all the things that can lead to overwhelming one in the lifestyle. And I know there's more and more we could have talked about, but rather than making this episode uh, be, fill somebody with a feeling of overwhelm, I just tried to limit it to what I discovered was the most popular causes for feeling overwhelmed and overthinking, and that all can lead to feeling anxious. And the lifestyle is something that we need to try our individual best at to keep it fun and lighthearted, rather than, there are times for it to be super serious and all that jazz. But in our research, in our education, it doesn't have to be a sense of overwhelming or a sense of dread. And throughout it all, if you do start to feel kind of overwhelmed by the lifestyle, it's okay to take a step back. It's okay to not answer something that's in your DMs right away, to take a long weekend away from all of everything kinky and just have breaks if you need them. That's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine to take breaks. So don't think the answer to feeling, overwhelmed, or if you're overthinking about something in a lifestyle, it's fine to press pause and come back when you're in the proper mindset. So anyway, thank you for listening. I really appreciate you making the time, especially during this holiday season when everyone's life is basically busier and will be busy, busy, busy until it's next year. And it's still fun to say, oh, I'll get to that next year. I know it's just, it's less than a month away next year, but it's still amazingly fun to be able to say, I'll get to it next year. I don't have to worry about it till next year. In a way, it's relieving, especially with some of my thoughts with work. Oh, I don't have to worry about that till next year. I don't know. It calms me. I know. Perhaps I am weird. So, on that note, I will ask that no matter where you're listening, please go ahead and click the follow button so you'll be notified whenever a new episode comes out. And if I don't talk to you before, I mean, I will be putting out a podcast next week, of course. But it is the holiday season. You could be very busy and miss that Christmassy podcast. I don't know if it'll be Christmas themed or not. Probably a little bit somewhere. But if by chance I miss connecting you with you on that podcast, let me wish you a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And I look forward to chatting with everyone again very soon. Thank you very much.